I just started. At the time, F1 was doing this tour around the country. A couple members worked at Red Bull. Hey, Red Bull, the team needs to build the actual cars to do this spectacle. Can they rent your space? When they finished and they started the car, I heard reports of people like a mile away that heard it. Didn't make any friends with the neighbors after that. It's definitely the sound of the grinder, the coffee grinder. Industrial sounds of cars, metal, and the steam of the espresso machine. I'm Michael Rapetti, founder of Motoring Club and Motoring Coffee. Grew up in New York, lived in different parts of the country. No matter where I lived, I'd always try to find the local cars and coffee and meet fellow car enthusiasts and learn about the scene in different places. It's been a part of my life and kind of my fascination. At a certain point in my life, I decided to turn it into a business. Motoring Coffee was born from the Motoring Club, and the idea with the Motoring Club was a social club for car enthusiasts, building a physical third space for people to gather with similar interests, daytime focused, to connect with people. Being a part of creating a space to make genuine connections is a big goal of mine. Almost 7 years in, we've definitely had some pretty amazing cars. A number of years ago, we did an event with Red Bull, and F1 at the time was doing this tour around the country, and they actually closed down Hollywood Boulevard, and all the teams brought their F1 cars and drivers and did donuts and kind of like spectacle down Hollywood. And at the time, I just started. A couple members worked at Red Bull, and they were like, hey, Red Bull, the team needs to build the actual cars to do this spectacle. Can they rent your space and build the cars? 3 days of a full F1 team building the actual F1 cars in the space, starting them up to then take them to Hollywood Boulevard. That was definitely the most unique. It was like a Wednesday afternoon when they finished and they started the car. There's a bunch of us there, and they handed out earplugs. And we had the doors open. I heard reports of people like a mile away that heard it. Didn't make any friends with the neighbors after that. I was a city kid. Grew up Upper East Side in Manhattan. I was big into sports, mountain biking. You know, I didn't have that like childhood of wrenching on a car, you know, in my driveway. It was more kind of the exotic idea of like cars and road trips. As a kid, I loved gear. I was a skier, and I would always pick up magazines reading about like next year's skis. And so I'd go to the ski shop, and I'd always just obsess over like gear. And I'd probably annoy a bunch of sales associates by being this like little kid asking about all these technical specs on skis and boots. My memory was telling my mom of the local ski shop in Vermont how inefficient it was as a space. What if they had couches over here and they played ski movies and they did events? Those memories are strong, where I saw a retail concept and I said, what if 30 years later or whatever, when I think about what I've done here, I always think back to those moments. Coming from the tech world, I worked for small and big tech companies. I worked for a number of years at Twitter. I was always telling brands, like, how can we make everything virtual and digital? Tech was a great way to build my career, and I learned a ton and made some great contacts, but at the end of the day, I realized that it pushed me too far away from where I wanted to create, which was in the real world. Coffee shops are kind of the cornerstone of a neighborhood, of a community. It's where people go to gather and meet. So that's kind of universal, I think, any coffee shop, any city. It's our emphasis on bringing people together over a common interest. The coffee landscape in LA is vast, and a lot of shops have their signatures or their kind of take on specialty coffee drinks. Our team is great there. We've got some mixologists in the crew, and they're always coming up with something fun. But my goal was always to be a traditional cafe, stick to the basics, and use high quality ingredients. Part of my idea with the design of the space was always to let the cars shine. In the early days, when I started this, had small budgets, kind of started as a proof of concept. I got scrappy and I figured out ways to make it cozy, make it feel like home, but still in this warehouse space with concrete floors. So I did it with like comfy, minimal furniture, ton of plants. It's a mixture of picking the right classic car and then pairing it with furniture. Most of the cars are owned by members. The people that are coming to us to store cars are definitely more interested in the social side of things and excited to have their car on display in the space so that they can bring friends and take a meeting and sit next to their car on the couch. We do a lot of events with different car brands. We just did an activation last week with Alfa Romeo, and we're actually running a month-long collaboration with them in the coffee shop. And so for that, we curated a bunch of classic Alfa Romeos. One of the interesting things about having a social club and building community is the variety of members that we've had. And we've been around for almost 7 years now. I call them the OGs, the members that joined even before the first clubhouse was built. Those like early believers that were excited and have always been like kind of brand ambassadors. And then we have new members that stumble upon the coffee shop and discover us for the first time and sign up and are excited to meet people and join the community. A couple years ago, a member brought in his friend into the space, and his friend is Sung Kang, who's the Fast and Furious actor. And so at the time, I was a little starstruck. Every car enthusiast who grew up watching Fast and Furious, those actors and actresses are very recognizable. That was kind of like a cool LA moment where I grew up watching these car movies and now creating this space. The hope is always, can regular enthusiasts, celebrities kind of walk into the same space and enjoy it in the same way. Now Sung he's a member, he's a big part of the community. It's a space where he comes in and takes meetings and feels like he can kind of get away from being a celebrity in LA. That to me makes me happy. The brand since day one has always kind of organically grown and evolved. I always say when I started the club, I had this idea of opening a physical space where cars, coffee, everything was kind of intertwined. But at the time, I didn't know exactly how that would look. First location we had was a raw warehouse and kind of proof of concept. My approach was get people into the space and then figure out what those people wanted and then basically mold the business and the opportunities around the needs of the community. As I think about growth, both on the club side and the coffee side, my job is to listen and get feedback and figure out what the needs are and grow the business in those ways. Short answer, take over the world, one city at a time, in a way that's smart, that's organic, really trying to not grow too fast. One of the hardest things is you have this push and pull with you want to be small and organic and do everything in a chill way, and then you have to run a business and there's costs and rising everything. you have to weigh those to make sure that you're running a profitable business and you can sustain yourself, but you're also staying true to your authenticity. Fun challenge and kind of a reason why we're a small team, kind of growing slowly and in the right ways. I've been lucky enough to do 2 kind of dream collaborations. When I started the business, the dream was, could I get big enough where a major car brand would want to do a collaboration with us? The fact that Alfa Romeo okayed their logo to be used with our logo on our coffee cups is a pretty cool moment. I'm also a huge sneakerhead. We did a collaboration with Nike. I'm a huge Porsche fan. If we could do, something similar with Porsche, that would definitely be my dream. I want people to feel that Motor and Coffee was a brand that inspired them. I want Motor and Coffee in 10 years to have created real relationships, real partnerships, a space for people to come and be welcome and connect.